I'm Pat Doris. Welcome to The Story. You've probably heard the saying that a person's home is their castle. Kind of implies you can do, whatever you want. It's your castle after all. But whoever came up with that saying apparently was not aware of homeowners associations, because if you're covered by one of those things, they have a lot of say over your castle. And in Beaverton, that's causing problems now. It's our big story tonight. A homeowners association is a committee set up in a neighborhood to help control how it looks and what happens there. Some forbid parking trailers along the sidewalks, for example. Some say you can't change your oil to your car out in front. It's that sort of thing. They also collect dues and pay for things like landscaping in common areas. But sometimes things can go sour very quickly, as some Beaverton neighbors are now finding out. Evan Watson explains.
In Beaverton, about 33 families live within the Cooper Mountain Estates HOA, your typical quiet suburban neighborhood. Sam Shake and his wife have owned their home since 2008, recently renting it out to a retired military member and his family. For 15 years, Shake said they had no problems with the neighborhood's homeowners association. Then last year, new neighbors took charge of the three-person HOA board.
You're facing what kind of penalties right now?
Right now, we're looking at $10,150 last time I checked, and it's continuing to go up.
HOAs set the rules for a neighborhood, collecting dues and issuing fines for violations. They have similar authority to a government agency, but they don't have the accountability of one. Neighbors here found out that can quickly go sideways.
It started in the garage. Shake's tenant liked to do woodworking there. The HOA board sent multiple violations and fines, up to $1,350 per week, saying the tenant was operating a woodworking business, that he couldn't fit two cars in the garage, and that woodworking was proof of habitation in the garage, all HOA violations.
We said, this is not habitation, this is occasional, this is a woodworking hobby. We don't believe that we're in any violations.
Shake says they were fined for a dead patch of grass, which they had covered with stone pavers after checking with the previous board. And then there were fines for who's inside the house. KGW talked with multiple families who were penalized for having older family members, like parents-in-law, living with them. The HOA fined families $300 a week for using their homes as multi-family dwellings.
The board asked for specifics, so names, cars, license plates, etc., all personal details from every person in there. And you can imagine, it's kind of humiliating.
Some people moved out of the neighborhood because of these fines and other board decisions. Others asked for their interviews not to be shown on camera because they're trying to get their fines reduced or removed and are worried about retaliation. For Shake, the violation seemed petty and personal.
We felt targeted, as other families have felt as well, and certainly the tenant felt targeted. I felt that everything we did wouldn't be satisfactory, and this was proved true.
On October 17th, a group of 12 frustrated homeowners sent the HOA board a letter requesting a special meeting. They said they wanted to vote to remove the board's president, and per the HOA bylaws, they had the numbers to do so. The very next day, board president Martin Anderson called a special meeting of his own. He and one other board member voted to change the bylaws, requiring at least half of the neighborhood's homeowners to call for a special meeting and 90% of the homeowners to establish a quorum.
You sent a letter to recall the board president. That letter was received, and the next day they changed the rules, so a recall is basically impossible.
Yes, that's correct. When homeowners found out that the thresholds had been changed without notice to us, we were all shocked.
A few weeks ago, I talked with HOA President Martin Anderson on the phone, asking him for an interview so he could explain his perspective on all of this. He said the board wanted to crack down on late dues and costs, like how much the board was paying for landscaping throughout the neighborhood, and he felt the neighborhood had gone downhill in recent years. Now, we talked for an hour, and he had a lot to say, but he didn't agree to an on-camera interview that day, and since then he hasn't responded to my messages.
A few weeks after the board changed the rules, Sam Shake received 2 more fines, saying his tenant was observed from the street performing work on their truck, a violation of dismantling or assembling motor vehicles. The other violation said the garage was being used for performing repairs on an automobile which involved habitation of the garage by a person while the repairs are being performed.
It's endless trying to chase these things, exhausting. It's a huge mental strain like I cannot describe. And it has really affected the quality of our lives.
Ultimately, Shake's tenants decided to leave, writing, "The harassment of the HOA has made us feel very uncomfortable and forced us to look for a new place to live. And these claims are outrageous and the discrimination is appalling."
Did it feel to you this whole system is rigged?
Yes, there's simply no oversight. Boy, this just screams of abuse, right? Or suggests that this entire system in the wrong hands with the wrong people, serving these positions for the wrong reason, could damage a community.
HOAs are largely unregulated, and as private organizations, the government sees any disputes as private matters. Kevin Harker is an attorney who specializes in HOA law. He says most HOA board members are volunteers trying their best to help their community.
The way I view the board of directors' role is to preserve property values, preserve the aesthetics of the community.
But Harker explains when there is conflict, government agencies don't have the legal authority to get involved. Ultimately, a civil lawsuit is the last recourse.
If the government had to get involved with enforcing these, that's all they would do. We deal with, our firm alone deals with dispute after dispute after dispute. And frankly, you know, when you can't resolve it, ultimately a judge does. And litigation's expensive though. And it's emotional and it can hold up sales in the community.
And it's increasingly common that new homeowners will buy an HOA-governed property. The U.S. Census says 84% of the new single-family homes sold in 2022 belonged to HOAs. Shake sees his experience as a warning sign.
My wife and I, we alternate between indignation, surprise, anger, and the sense of injustice. We simply don't know who to turn to, other than going to a lawyer to help us defend ourselves. I thought we were a community, and now it's become us versus them.
Evan's with me now. Holy smokes. So what, if somebody lives in something like this, what can they do?
Right, that's the essence of this, right? There's little oversight or accountability, and oftentimes it gets to the legal stage. So Kevin Harker, the lawyer you heard from there, said even with his line of practice, he often encourages any type of mediation, resolution with neighbors before getting to the law side of things. You have to consult a lawyer and see what your options are. But really, because HOAs are private entities, that's where this path ultimately goes, to a civil lawsuit.
That's going to be expensive on all sides.
Yeah.
Okay. And then I know that there are some people that you talked to that actually couldn't handle it, picked up and moved, right?
Yeah, there are multiple other neighbors that I did talk to for this story. A lot said that they didn't want to be on camera because they're still trying to reduce those fines. And then others saying that, hey, we left this neighborhood because we didn't want to deal with this. We moved out. And that just shows kind of the fragility of situations if you find yourself in an HOA or an HOA board. So good practice is read those bylaws, the CC&Rs, make sure you know who's on the board. And it takes more time, but maybe volunteer or be on the board yourself if you want to ensure that everything's working properly as you'd like to handle it.
Yeah, wow. Interesting stuff, Evan. Thanks. HOAs, woo, avoid them if you can. Thanks a lot. Moving on, Intel got a huge windfall from the federal government today. Tens of billions of dollars to spur the building of chip manufacturing plants here in America. It includes money to renovate and expand in Hillsborough as well. We're going to spend a little extra time on this for a couple of reasons. First, Intel is Oregon's largest private employer with roughly 23,000 jobs here. Second, they are the leading edge of bringing back chip manufacturing to the U.S., which is huge for both Oregon and the nation at large. First, let's take a look at what did happen. The Biden administration, using the CHIPS Act, granted Intel $8.5 billion in grants for expansions. It's also making $11 billion available in loans. And Intel will get another $25 billion from tax credits for their building investments. So the grand total could be above $44 billion. Now, let's talk for a moment about Intel's impact on Oregon's economy. It's huge. For example, Intel reports that in 2020, they spent $4 billion in Oregon with about 500 different suppliers scattered around the state. So, you know, when Intel gets a cold, Oregon gets the flu. And it's good when Intel is healthy. Intel now says that it will invest $100 billion in the U.S. over the next 5 years, and more than a third of that, $36 billion, is going into Hillsboro. Hillsboro's mayor says the company is a huge economic engine.
You can see that how well Intel has been doing, and it's no coincidence. It's the state economy and the state revenue has been high. You know, the good jobs that are created at Intel send a lot of income taxes down to Salem. And, you know, you saw the kicker that we're getting back. And that's in no small part due to the economic investment, the development that we do as a city, the county does, and also, you know, this is how we reap the rewards statewide.
Mayor Callaway had a reaction to the news that I suspect happened in many areas of the country where Intel is located today.
I'm delighted. I'm thrilled for the nation and our national security. I'm happy for the state of Oregon, happy for Hillsboro. I think it's just a great win-win-win situation all the way around.
Intel CEO Pat Gelsinger lobbied hard for that CHIPS money. Today in Arizona, he said it is important to bring manufacturing back to American soil.
You know, and today is a victory for Americans' national economy, but also our national security. It's a victory for American innovation, and it's a victory for the American people and our collective future. Because in our modern world, everything relies on chips. Every aspect of humanity is going digital and relies on chips. And their production shapes the future of all of humanity. The world we know and the world we are creating for our generations to come, our kids and grandkids and their children, it is all built upon this magic of silicon. All of us at Intel believe that restoring our nation's leadership in semiconductors is more than just an opportunity, more than just a responsibility. It's our calling. This is what we were built for as a company. This is what we do. And we have already announced plans to invest more than $100 billion in the U.S. over a 5-year period.
It's a whole lot of money. Intel said that money will be used for projects across 4 states. In Arizona, it will build 2 new leading-edge logic fabs. In Ohio, it will build 2 more of those leading-edge logic fabs. In New Mexico, it's turning 2 fabs into advanced packaging facilities. And in Oregon, the company said this money will expand and modernize facilities to increase clean room capacity and also to utilize advanced lithography equipment. Now, those investments are expected to create more than 10,000 manufacturing jobs at various Intel campuses and provide jobs for 20,000 construction workers. So, yeah, huge deal. Also in Arizona, that big announcement, Gina Raimondo, the Secretary of Commerce, she said that Intel is getting the most money of any company in the CHIPS program, and she pointed out that the U.S. currently makes 0% of the leading-edge chips in the U.S. She wants that to grow to 20% in the next 6 years.
The truth is, you know this, we lead the world in the design of chips. We lead the world in the design of AI chips and AI and systems. And then we ship our designs to a couple companies in a couple countries in Asia. And we're utterly reliant. And that is not sustainable. It's not safe. It's not enabling us to be strong. It's unacceptable. And today we say we're changing the course. We are changing that course. And we're beginning a new course to revitalize the semiconductor industry, an industry that was started in the United States of America. And we're going to lead again in the United States of America, including foundry, making the best chips in the world with American workers in the United States of America.
All right, well, this was such a big deal that President Biden flew to Arizona to take part in the announcement. He had plenty of praise for Intel.
And right here in the United States, Intel is committed to net zero greenhouse gas emissions by 2040, and using 100% renewable electricity to power these fabs. And there's more, because this isn't just about investing in America. It's about investing in America, the American people as well. That's why we're dedicating $50 million of CHIPS funding to partner with Intel and community stakeholders like community colleges, state and local governments, labor unions, and universities to train a new generation of workers for the semiconductor industry. That way, people don't have to leave their hometowns to get good paying jobs and support their families.
So, a huge day, not just for Intel, but also for Oregon and for 3 other states as well. By the way, I'm currently working on a story involving that huge new lithography machine being built at Intel in Hillsboro. Should be ready by next month. You will be amazed by the technology involved there. Stay tuned for that in the coming weeks. In the meantime, coming up next on the story, we're marking the 10th anniversary of the Oso landslide in the state of Washington. After the break, we'll hear from the first search and rescue team who responded in the skies and the unique bond they now share with a woman they saved from that mud. That's next when the story returns. A decade after 43 people were killed in Oso, Washington, just north of Seattle, there are still many lessons to be learned. Tonight, we hear from search and rescue crews on what the devastation looked like from above, plus how one person they helped save in a real way is still trying to find her way back home. Greg Copeland has our story.
Saturday morning, typical training day, rehearsals in the hangar like we always do. I think everybody was loaded up and we were just about ready to start when Deputy Bergstrom came out of the office and advised us of a report of a barn in the middle of Highway 530 with somebody in the barn yelling for help.
We head up that valley pretty often, especially during rescue seasons, and we always know it's coming up.
I think we're looking at a catastrophic event here.
Trying to get oriented when we flew over the ridge because we would cue off that community to make our turn, and that community's gone. So there was momentary questions: are what's going on? Are we in the right place? None of this is making sense.
We've got Whitman Road that has been taken out by a slide.
You could definitely see that there was a landslide there.
There's this kind of panic setting in, and the scale of this is starting to make sense, but hey, we got work we have to do.
We didn't see anybody on our first pass. We didn't see as much as a 2x4.
Gravel, mud, debris, not even a chimney sticking.
We heard this huge boom, and we ran to the window, and I saw something going like this, and I thought, what the? And I turned this way, and there was a wall of mud coming toward us. We didn't have any time to do anything. I basically said, okay, Creator, if you want me, here I am.
But that day, Robin Youngblood says she had some help from above.
I thought there has to be some way that we can get their attention, so I picked up that t-shirt and started waving it.
And we turned around and came back up, and that's when we spotted the two ladies on the rooftop.
It ripped the roof off the house.
We're going to bring all patients to this LZ.
Robin and her friend Yeti had somehow survived.
I have her. We got the Dutch woman up and out of there, came back down, hooked up Robin. You know, she's a Native American pastor, and she had a painting of this Indian warrior that she had lugged up to the roof.
But I told him, it's very important to me.
It was clearly meaningful, and I told her, you can't take that. And I remember that she didn't fight me on it, but she had a reaction.
I needed that painting. That's all I can say about it. I really needed it.
Slack. So we got her up, and when they came to extract me again, I just grabbed the painting and took it up with me.
It was a moment of compassion in the midst of chaos. And for a woman who now had nothing, it meant everything.
It's a Cherokee night warrior, the one who protects the people if danger comes. The painting kind of floated up between us, and I told her, okay, look at his eyes. He's telling us that we're going to be saved. It'll be all right.
The slide wiped away any sort of security Robin Youngblood felt living in Oso. She moved several times trying to find a place that brought her some peace. She finally found it here, just outside of Asheville, North Carolina.
They call this the Blue Ridge Mountains, and at certain times of day, those mountains back there will look blue. Basically, I've spent the last 10 years trying to find safety again. It actually took me years to clean the mud off that painting because it symbolized for me everything that had happened.
The mud is finally washed away, but the memory is still fresh.
Once we had those two aboard, we took them downstream, found a place on the highway to land.
I remember hugging her. She seemed to be a little shaky when she got off the aircraft, as you can imagine.
The words between Robin and Randy, neither remembers, but it's a moment they'll never forget.
Let's put it this way. We're soul bonded.
It was very satisfying to at least have that one piece of her life there to give to her. So I felt good about that after it was done.
The team would go on to save 6 more people that day, including 4-year-old Jacob Spillers, who lost his dad and 3 siblings.
We do what we're trained. We just kept busy. We kept our head down and kept picking people up as long as there were people to be picked up.
And Jacob came out of this.
And there's a river right down there.
And Robin came out of it, having seen them a couple of times since. That's very reassuring, because a lot of times when we rescue folks who drop them off at the hospital, we never see them again. We don't always know what the end of the story is.
The deadly 2014 landslide was not the first on that hill, by the way. Far from it. Geologists and historians say it was prone to failure for decades.
So it was a surprising event. I mean, the idea that we'd have big landslides in Western Washington, that's not a surprise. One that would go that far, that fast, that was a surprise.
Tomorrow night, we hear from the experts on the science of the slide, why it happened, the factors that made it so fast and so deadly, and what was learned that can be used going forward. Stay with us. We're back with a final word right after this. And the final word is thank you. Thanks for being part of our story family. Thanks for your phone calls and your emails. Keep them coming. We listen to them all and we read them all. Hey, that's the end of our show. Thanks so much for watching. And remember, the story, our collective story, that never ends. The good stuff is coming your way next. And I'll see you right back here tomorrow night at 6:30.